Hello, everyone. Welcome to this international trade webinar on tariffs. Very important topic these days. We are so pleased to bring you this webinar from the New York Small Business Development Centers. And this is particularly from the NYSBDC International Trade Initiative, which Dr. Mercedes Sanchez-Moore is the director of, and she'll be addressing you in just a moment. We have some fantastic presenters with us today, including Maria Luisa Boyce and Joe Lodispoto, and I will let Mercedes talk about them some more in just a moment. So you know, we are recording today, and we welcome your questions in the chat or the Q&A box. It's not open yet, but it will be shortly. And then also, I would like to remind you, you won't be on camera today, but you can communicate with us through those text-based means. With that, I will turn the time over to Mercedes and share her slides. Okay, can you see the slides, everyone? All right, we've got a thumbs up. Go ahead, Mercedes.
Thank you, Jenny, for your kind introduction, and welcome everyone to our webinar, Understanding Tariffs, Current Landscape, Future Outlook, and Strategic Mitigation. First, I will provide a brief introduction of the New York Small Business Development Center, our international trade program. The New York SBDC is a partnership of the U.S. Small Business Administration, SUNY, the City University of New York State, higher education institutions, and the private sector. The SBDC provides one-to-one business advisement, training, and research in support of entrepreneurship and economic development for the state of New York, and this is both for U.S. domestic businesses and international trade. The International Trade Initiative is a special program within the New York SBDC network, which is housed and part of the SUNY network of around 20 regional centers and 72 outreach and satellites offices. 98% of the population in the state of New York is within 30 minutes of an SBDC service location. The New York SBDC International Trade Initiative supports SBDC clients statewide with expertise and experience on international trade and trade compliance. We also provide SBDC staff with professional development, increasing trade advising capabilities statewide. All of our services are free, customized, and 100% confidential. We help small and medium-sized companies become globally competitive by providing export development and import operations assistance through one-to-one trade consulting, market research, innovative training, such as this webinar, and links to additional export resources provided by our partners. Present here, Global New York. Additional partners are the U.S. Commercial Service of the Department of Commerce, the Small Business Administration, Exim Bank, and other public and private organizations. The New York SBDC can help your business become a successful competitor in foreign markets by helping you plan and implement your export strategy. Our international business consultants are available to assist retailers, manufacturers, high technology, and even services companies with export planning and other areas such as export readiness review, export business plans, targeting international markets, selecting sales and distribution channels, legal considerations and licensing, logistic procedures and documentation, market research and trade logistics, and international financing options. And now, it is my pleasure to introduce my very good friend, Catherine Van Berger from Global New York. Take it on, Catherine.
Good morning. Thank you, Mercedes, and welcome, everyone. I'm just going to make sure I can. Right now, you should be seeing an Empire State Development full screen, which is the Agency for Economic Development with the state of New York. And we are primarily concerned with everything job creation. So primarily, we're looking at job retention, job creation, minority and women-owned business certification, real estate development, and lots of other programs to help build a robust economy within the state of New York. Our little part of that agency is looking to promote competitiveness on a global scale by assisting small businesses in New York State with their products and services and exporting to foreign markets, as well as attracting international businesses to consider setting up shop here in New York State. Tariff strategies and considerations. Obviously, Maria Luisa and Joe are going to talk about this in great detail, but what we're trying to do here in the state is, obviously this is a federally directed issue, and we are gathering through that email tariffimpact@esd.ny.gov. We want to hear the stories about the companies in New York State that are being affected by tariff changes, volatility, et cetera, and want to know the direct impact on your business, because statistics will tell the story, but also stories will tell the story. And so we want to make sure that when we are considering advocacy or any other supports that we can offer, that we're considering your direct needs. Our team is primarily located in New York City, but we do have folks like me scattered around the upstate in Buffalo, Rochester, here in the Capital Region, and also the Mid-Hudson area. And you can see when we share all these slides later on, you can find your local representative for Global New York. And like me, all of our folks are well-versed in our programs and services, as well as referrals to partners such as Mercedes and the U.S. Commercial Service, Exim Bank, et cetera, as well. In addition, we also contract with foreign offices. So we have folks who are actually on the ground in the markets around the world. They cover 187 countries out of 15 main offices, and they offer a variety of support services from within those countries. Our three main programs are Export Marketing Assistance Service Program, STEP, which is a state trade expansion program, which is funded by the Small Business Administration at the federal level, and then the Global New York program, which is a state-funded grant program. The EMAS helps New York businesses find distributors and agents abroad, and that work is done with all of those foreign offices, as I mentioned. Local expertise and making connections with those international partners. And currently, this is often at no cost to businesses that qualify within the state of New York. Primarily, they're located in these regions, and up to 3 markets can be selected within any 12-month period. They tailor this advice based on your feedback about your company, your products, and your ideal customers, and making that connection within their own markets from a domestic standpoint in the foreign market. The STEP program is a grant program that is reimbursable for selected activities up to $10,000 each program year. Currently, we are in step 12, so the 12th year of this program, and we will be applying for 13th round, competing with other states to try to get the most money that we can for New York State companies. You have to be a small business concern. You have to be producing at least 51% of the value of your product or service within the United States and be headquartered in New York. The kinds of things that can be reimbursed are primarily export marketing services as well as compliance services. So building an international marketing plan or compliance manual, attending a workshop, exhibiting at an international trade show, whether it be within the United States or another country, and then also reimbursement for the Exim Bank insurance premium, where you can get up to 90% of your receivables insured for pennies on the dollar. It's a great program and service and really serves to mitigate the risk of international trade. The Global New York Fund, similarly, we look at New York State employment. The grants will range from $7,500 to $25,000, and that is a 50% reimbursement as well. Again, you have to be creating your product instead of within the United States, within New York State. Don't worry about all those details about eligibility. That's our job to help you navigate those. That's why you want to contact your local representative from Global New York nearest to you. We also host some trade missions, and our upcoming trade missions for the gaming sector in September will be in Japan. In Canada and India, it's a multi-sector trade mission happening this fall. We'll go to Mexico in January, and for the healthcare industry, the Arab Health Show in February. In addition, we also have all of those foreign representatives coming to a city near you in September. So we have, as you can see there, a number of different locations, one in each of the 10 economic development regions around the state, and they will be available to meet with you one-on-one, talking very specifically about your business. Now, the best way to take advantage of this opportunity would be to complete one of those export marketing assistance or EMAS applications so that they can learn more about you in advance. And then when you meet in person, you can have some really dynamic and detailed conversations about your opportunities in those markets. So we would definitely encourage you, even though it seems like September is really far away, it will be here before we know it. And hopefully it will be cooler. So in the meantime, of course, I'm representing here the northeastern part of the state, but always happy to talk to anyone, particularly in the food and beverage sector, as I have some distinct experience in that. And again, just want to make sure that everyone is saving the dates for their upcoming event. Thank you so much for letting me speak, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Catherine, for your very informative presentation. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our main speakers of today, Maria Luisa Voice and her colleague, Joe Lodisopo, that is going to join her as well in her presentation. Maria Luisa Voice serves as Vice President of International Policy for Global Affairs at UPS, bringing over 25 years of experience in international trade, customs, and cross-border commerce. Based in Washington, D.C., she advocates for UPS priorities on Capitol Hill and leads government affairs across Latin America. Maria Luisa champions global policy for small business customers and directs the UPS Women Exporters Program. She plays key leadership roles, including co-chair of the Trade Facilitation Committee at the American Business Dialogue and is member of the International Trade Advisory Committee, ITAC 13, on Customs and Trade Facilitation, and chair of the International Trade and Security Policy Committee with the American Trucking Association. Her career spans public and private sectors, including roles at the U.S. Customs and Border Protection and the Border Trade Alliance. A native of Bogota, Colombia, she holds a bachelor's in finance and international relations from Universidad Externado de Colombia and a certificate from Harvard Kennedy School Government for Strategic Management for regulatory and compliance agencies. Please, Maria Luisa, go ahead with your presentation.
Mercedes, thank you so much. I didn't know you were going to read my bio, so it's really a pleasure and an honor to be here with all of you and with the small and medium-sized businesses. I love Catherine's presentation and Mercedes, your presentation, because as part of UPS, we love being part of the community that supports small and medium-sized businesses. UPS is a proud strategic partner of the Department of Commerce. We work very closely with SBA, Exim Bank, and I'm happy to be here that Mercedes kindly invited us with SBDC to be able to talk about trade and tariffs. And I'm very humbled to be joined by my colleague, Joe Lodispoto, who is a native. Joe, I'm going to say, are you a native New Yorker? Are you in your cover our New York and New Jersey region, right?
Yep. So native New Jersey, but cover New York and New Jersey.
I know. I should clarify that part, but thank you so much. And it really is it's a pleasure to be with you guys today. And we're going to talk about trade and tariffs. And I love Catherine's presentation and Mercedes about the resources that you have as small businesses. What we hope to accomplish is to give you some peace of mind, give you what is the order within the chaos that seems to be happening in trade and tariffs, and provide you some insights that can help you as a small business owners. Please ask any questions that you may have. We may not have the answers right away, but we might be able to follow up with you. I do have to include this disclaimer for those of you that have lawyers in your life. You understand it. Policies are changing and they change from time to time. And also, at the end of the day, make certain that you're doing your homework and you have your legal advice on that information. And of course, I already introduced Joe and I, we're going to be taking you through this journey. That presentation today and what we're going to give you an overview of where are we on policies, on trade and tariffs, what is happening, what is the latest, put a little bit of context of how does that impact you as a small and medium-sized business, what are some advice and some checklists that we're going to give you so you can have in mind as you are navigating the supply chain and the process of exporting and importing, and also what solutions. We'll share with you what solutions do we have as information, but just for you to have a better sense too, that you can ask the right questions, the better questions about when you're looking for the partners and working on trade. And to put a little bit of perspective of why are we having this conversation and why this is so close and dear to our heart, UPS moves on a daily basis around 2% of the world's GDP in our network. We move on a daily basis 6% of the United States GDP in our network. We're seeing that the impact and the movement of how things are moving, and most important, 30% of our customers are small and medium-sized businesses. So we're constantly looking about what is that impact for small and medium-sized businesses. And you might think of us as the brown truck that you might see in the streets or as the airplane. We also have a cold supply chain, a healthcare and cold supply chain around the world. And also we're customs brokers and freight forwarders and uses of rail. I always fascinate that we have all those movements, but that gives us an insight. And I wanted to put it into context because we're looking at all these changes constantly to make certain that we have the better sense of what is happening. And I was thinking, okay, so let's talk about tariffs and trades, and you're gonna be receiving this on that part, but this is the current standing of this table, which looks very busy and a lot of information, and you will receive this. I want you to notice three things. I have it in three categories here. One is, what is the current status? We'll go more into depth on that. The second one is on the trade framework agreements that are happening right now on the reciprocal conversation. We already have one that has been announced, that is with the UK. And also we have what is called 232 tariff investigations. And you may say, Maria Luisa, what is that? We'll go into depth on that piece. But I know this looks like a little bit too much. So I went ahead and did, okay, let's do it more simple. What is impacted and what is happening right now? So on April 2nd, the United States announced that they were going to do reciprocal conversations, reciprocal trade negotiations with all the country. Where we are today is we find ourselves, look at those three big circles. We have what is USMCA, that is US-Mexico, Canada, a trade agreement that is currently at 0%, and tariffs do not stack. I'll go into depth into that one. We have the rest of the world that is at 10% right now, and that is also tariffs do not stack, and that is 10% for everywhere else, 10% duties on goods that you import from around the world. And then you have China and Hong Kong, which is at 30%. You have the reciprocal tariff of 10, but plus an IEPA on fentanyl, 20%. You do have also some 232s that are in the table that I mentioned. These 232 are investigations that are led by the Department of Commerce and focus on economic security impact, goods that may impact the economy. And the administration has identified certain sectors that represent economic security from their perspective. And those sectors, once you go through the 232 investigation, they request comments and then they come out with recommendations that need to be implemented. Currently, we have 232s on aluminum and steel and derivatives, and we also have 232s on automobiles. The 232 on aluminum and steel and derivatives had some exemptions, those have been removed. And this has an impact on your, I know, Maria Luisa, why are you saying all of this? How does that impact my product? We'll talk about that because this has a new approach on how do we look at product classification and how do we look at what gets our impact. What are we expecting? We're expecting in the next deadlines that you have to keep in mind is going to be July 9th. That's when we're going to hear what are those agreements that are happening with the countries. I am blessed or have part of my homework as UPS. I'm, as Mercedes mentioned, I'm on the ITAC 13, which is an advisory committee on customs and trade facilitation for Department of Commerce. Also makes me a clear advisor, which we're able to work with USTR and review policy that is being negotiated by the government and provide our input. Why do I mention that? Is because we're constantly thinking about our customers and small businesses and be able to provide our thoughts on whatever language is being negotiated. So that is happening right now And it says in there they're having negotiations right now with 38 countries. That includes the EU, which is more than EU is one, but that's 24 countries. And also the conversations have started with China. This is important because there were changes. China and Hong Kong, you have in there, you also have the de minimis, which is imports that were imported into the country under $800 that didn't pay any duty. And so if we think about it, that was a huge impact because many small and medium-sized businesses were importing goods from China under $800, and that has had an impact on their cost of doing business. And so how is that impacted? We're seeing that area. What is another expectation that we're seeing? The USTR, the U.S. Department, U.S. Trade Representative Office, is being flexible in the negotiations and understanding that there is a bigger impact in terms of what is coming on board. And the policy and the input that we're providing is helping to keep in mind how do they implement or make changes that are in a phased-in approach rather than all or nothing type of approach. And so we're seeing that trend. We saw it with 1232 that came out on shipbuilding, but we're following closely. And then the other one, of course, is USMCA. And USMCA, I keep bringing it up because the number one a destination for exports for small and medium-sized businesses is Canada or Mexico. They go one or two. You could also have, of course, the UK and EU. So that's important for us to have in mind and why we bring it up. And just to give you a little bit of sense of where we are and where we're going so that you have a framework of mind, is that right now the review for USMCA is coming up. It's every 6 years that there has to be a review. On October 1st, USTR is going to start the public consultation with industry. So that's where your community around you have Mercedes and Catherine, we can provide that information about what are impacts, what are concerns, what are technical areas. USTR is going to collect this. On January 1st, 2026, they have to present to Congress what is the recommendation for the review. And then on July 1st, 2026, the three countries say, what is the path forward? What does that mean? For example, they identify an area that they need to continue to review, that they don't reach agreement. They have 10 years to reach that agreement. So starting from July 1st to 2026 to 2036, which is that the agreement is to last 16 years. They meet once a year to make certain that they fix whatever they have no agreement. Or let's say one of the countries say, forget it, I'm out of here, I don't want to be here. Well, they have 10 years to move out of the agreement, right, as it is written right now in the agreement. Or if they say we want to make further changes, they have the 10 years to make changes internally. Why am I saying all of this? And Joe, I'm going to bring you in the conversation because trade changes, flows changes. And so I do want to give you my sense of don't panic, relax and read and make certain that you have the information while we adapt to see what are those changes. And I don't know, Joe, if that makes sense as we're looking at all the different areas of change. But I love this map. It looks very busy, Joe, right? To talk about supply chain flows and movements.
I think no, I think it does look busy, but when you simplify supply chain mapping, I think it's when you look at a business, it's what's coming inbound and what's going outbound at its simplest term, right? How are you sourcing your goods? And once your goods get to your warehouse or wherever you're storing them, how are they getting outbound to your end consumer, whether that's a business or an individual like myself buying a product online? We are seeing now more than ever supply chains shift in reaction to these tariffs. On the inbound side, what does that mean? You could have customers, or as a customer, you could be someone where sourcing your goods from China, being impacted by these tariffs, and then possibly moving to Korea, to Mexico, nearshoring. So these supply chains are constantly moving and evolving. On the outbound side, you could be shipping to Canada, the UK. You're following consumer trends, shifting to find where your demand is and ultimately maximize your value prop to your customer.
And I think on that, which I love that part, and for you, for as small business owners, keep that in mind as Joe is talking, because as we see what the announcements are and the trade agreements, yes, it is stressful right now, the changes, and I'm not diminishing the stress and the change. And also, the opportunity to see what opportunities are opening up, right? What are the changes on the language on what happened? But as we go to that piece, and Joe mentions it because his job is very much fun because he's day to day with our customers. You're seeing those changes, and how do you shift, right? How do you move and be able to be agile about those changes? But as we were preparing this, we thought, okay, let's have what is a checklist, right? Because I know as business owners, you're busy. And I know, Mercedes, you were talking to me when we were talking about this, how do we give this sense of to know like a map, like a roadmap for small businesses so they know what to do. And so what we did is we created a checklist to see what are the areas that you have to look at, how do you work, how do you prepare for the changes. We're not going to go over all of them because we only have a limited time today, but I wanted to highlight some of them. And Joe and I are going to give you some advice, and Joe will jump in for any practical advice that he's hearing from customers. But I want you to have this, and this will be sent to you once I figure out how to shrink it enough to be emailable. I know I will work on that piece. But these are important steps that you have to have in mind. What we're taking you here is, okay, before seeing, okay, things are changing, how am I panic? What are the next steps? And I'm thinking of you as your product, as your relationship with your customer, right? Your consumer. How do you get to your customer? And all of these things are changing. And I used to work with US Customs and Border Protection on the trade side. And I can tell you that where we're living right now is authorities doing more compliance and more enforcement. So you really have to understand that piece. As a small and medium-sized business, you may not have, probably many of our customers, their staff is of 5 or 7 or 10, and the younger generation is in charge of the social media and interaction, and others on the selling and the marketing. How do you comprehend this? This is important, and this can help you have that map in your mind. Okay, what questions do I need to ask? And the first one that I thought was important for us is assess the impact of the change tariffs. So you need to understand, okay, how am I being impacted? And I always, when I do trainings, and you probably do this too, I always tell the customers or the businesses, know your product. You need to know your product. So of course, Maria Luisa, I know my product. That's my baby. That's my innovation. But I really need you to know your product. And what we mean by that right now on the changes that we're seeing is really about compliance. Understand how your product is made. If you're using raw material from other parts of the world to make your product, make certain that you understand what are you bringing, from where are you bringing it. And that's part of what I mean by know your product. Understand the name and the last name. I always call name and last name. That is the HTS code number. My broker friends always laugh at me because they say, what do you mean HTS name and last name? The last name will change depending on the country where your product is from. The first name will always be the same, which is the first 6 digits of your HTS code. That's another webinar that we can talk with Mercedes about the details of the classification. But you have to understand what is that first name and last name of the product where you're sending, the product to. So that classification becomes very important. I also, what we're finding out is validating the information that you have to make certain that it's true. And to give you an example on this is the United States in 2017 changed a law that is called the UFLIPA, but it's about forced labor. So they want to know that you haven't used products or goods that use forced labor at the point of origin. And as a small business, you might say, well, Marisa, I know what my tier 1 suppliers might send me, but I don't know my tier 2 or my tier 3. This is now part of validate your information, and talking to your suppliers becomes very important. You need to understand where your products are coming from, where they're being made, and understand that you will have certain regulations that will apply, and either a higher tariff, more cost, or that you have to report what percentage is being made of anything. I have an example. We have a customer that exports 75% of the raw material of the final product from the United States into Dominican Republic. In Dominican Republic, they put together another 25% of content for the final product, and then they export that good back to the United States. And so in that example, the classification becomes very interesting because 75% of the product does not have any duty because all the raw material is from the United States. 25% does. To add a layer of it, then let's say that it uses a little bit of aluminum or steel or transform. We'll talk more about that, but they have to know what is that percentage and how do they classify it. So that is important. Make certain that you update your invoices. And Joe, this is a big one, right? Invoices are a big difference of how you describe your product, what information you put in there. You have to be very careful about the invoices, and authorities are paying more attention to that.
Absolutely. When I work with brokers who are actually rating the goods from customers like yourselves, the feedback I always get is make sure the commercial invoice is clear, make sure it's descriptive, and make sure it's accurate. At the end of the day, that is our information that we're providing to the people that are clearing your goods. If that information is accurate and double checked, it makes everyone's lives a little easier. And to Maria's point, it's super important to know the product.
Yeah, and you know we in our women exporter program we had a women exporter program in Mexico, and we had one of our entrepreneurs makes jewelry out of pictures, and one of the pictures that she took was of an elephant, and she took the picture and turned that into an earring, but in the invoice she put elephant ear or something. She didn't describe that it was a picture of an elephant. Needless to say, the earrings that were, I think they were like $55, they use steel, were stopping customs because what the officer that read it, it was not clear, thought that she was moving a piece of elephant in the cargo. And so this was before she became our customer, by the way. I want to clarify that. That's why she became our customer. Understanding better how to classify, how to description, and that makes a big difference. So make certain now more than ever, this is important that you do your homework and have that description correct. And consider automation when applicable. And don't roll your eyes. Why did we include that piece? Is because during the pandemic, in the first 9 months of the pandemic, we saw changes in e-commerce that we thought were going to take 5 to 10 years. And what does that mean? The volume grew, the speed of the movement of volume grew, and we saw a big change of B2C, business to consumer directly, instead of more continuous B2B, but it was a big change. So what does that have to do with automation? Is that now you're seeing more volume and you want things to move faster and the information. So if automation is a process for your invoice, for the information that you have of your product, that's always good to have. And how do you communicate with your customer? The consumer has changed their behavior. And I don't know how many of you want to know, where's the thing that I order and where is it coming? That has become very important. I do want to say things are changing. And I know change sometimes is hard for some of us, but things are changing. Make certain that you keep an eye on that part. For example, de minimis origin Hong Kong and China changed after May 2nd or May 9th, actually. I should make that change on that piece. That is having an impact. And so you have to think about do I have anything from China? What is now the new tariff that is going to be charged? And how does that impact my price? Do I look at other modes of how do I consolidate? We'll talk a little bit about that. But it's something that information, and if you're informed, you can make better decisions rather than panic and freeze. Just make certain that you have that information and how do we work out that solution. Joe, I'm going to move to the next one in case you want to add anything to before. I think we talk a lot about USMCA, but if you are doing business, and I think, Catherine, I love how you were showing the flow and the different offices that you have. You may be doing business not only with Canada and Mexico, but the UK or EU. Make certain, look at those, the point of this slide, look at where we have trade agreements with as a US. Because even in the conversations that are happening right now, that's where we're seeing where the benefits will come in terms of the tariffs and what is going to be charged. So have that in mind also. USMCA is a great opportunity that you can have if you are a small business that is not exporting yet, but thinking about exporting. This is a good opportunity to start with Canada or to start with the UK. What are the opportunities that you have in there? And I love Catherine mentioned, I always am amazed about how many of our small businesses don't know the tools that are available from Exim Bank? The accounts receivable insurance is a huge deal. And UPS works very closely with Exim Bank, with commercial services, and we'll be working closely with Catherine. Catherine, I have not met you, but this is the beginning of a new friendship, and with Mercedes, to make certain that we provide you that community approach and you have awareness of all the resources that you have. Joe, you wanted to say something too? Because I know this is the
No,
Colombian, the Latin
yeah, I
takes
didn't want to
over.
jump in, but I think that's such a good point. I think UPS fits in really good, especially for the customers that are new to exporting, understanding where the consumer taste is. UPS, our account representatives are act as consultants, and we can help you grow your business by analyzing SimilarWeb, which is a website that says where you're getting hits from, and say your goods are getting targeted in Canada, and you could be intimidated by international trade. You cannot know that that demand was there, but in doing so, it's possible that you're missing out on opportunity to grow that profit, grow that revenue for your business. So by tearing down the borders, looking to expand into Mexico, Canada, countries that have similar consumer tastes to the American consumer, similar buying habits, it's just an unbelievable way to expand your business and ultimately, achieve your end goal, which is to
Yeah.
grow that business. It's exporting is an unbelievable way to expand.
Yeah, I love it. And we'll move forward and more in that conversation. This is another part of the checklist. This is like now that we have here that talks about you're validating your product of origin. And I think talking about, is it a simple assembly like the example I gave on Dominican Republic, right? Or is it a substantial transformation that will change your HTS code? You need to understand, well, how are things changing? Because as part of the negotiations of the trade framework, this is something important that is being discussed is what are the rules of origin, meaning this is how administrations are able to, within foreign trade agreements, to reach agreement of how much conversation or interaction will happen between our countries. If you need to have 60% of your product has to be from your country or from the US or the agreement, you have to have that understanding. And then the transformation also has an impact. What is the impact too? If you have an aluminum, steel, or derivatives, that will have an impact too, and you need to know what is the percentage. And I know this sounds like a lot, but if you take the time to slow down and look at the process and what you have in there, you have a better sense of what classification is there and who can you work with. And to Joe's point, when he was talking also earlier, you can make an assessment of your supply chain. This is another option on the table where we are here. You have foreign trade zones, you have bonded warehouses. You have to look at what are the different tools that I have on the toolbox that can be leveraged. And you might be saying, well, I'm a small business, I may not have the cash flow. You will be surprised. You have Catherine and Mercedes that can help you from that perspective. If you choose to work with someone like UPS, we can sit down and do that mapping process for you. But you have options in here to better adapt to the changes that are happening on trade and tariffs. And the key takeaways and of this discussion, of course, we have more on those 10, but we'll go more deeper on that later and provide information. But I think these 4 areas are important. Assess your exposure to the tariff changes. Evaluate the alternatives or sourcing and manufacturing options. And that might be, Maria Luisa, my source or my raw material, it's only made in China right now. You have to, first of all, let us know, Catherine and Mercedes, let them know that this is a challenge to make certain that this is also communicated in terms of we need flexibility in this area or adapt the changes on price and cost, what will be the new cost, or look for alternative sources. How much time would it take you to find other sources? There's alternatives on that piece. And I know, I'm sure, Joe, this is part of what you're talking with some of your customers, right? On that piece.
Absolutely. I think you nailed it. I think the other piece is to stay proactive as we're going through these webinars, as we're understanding the constant change. It's important to be on top of the changes. It's not as intimidating if you're reacting to the information, getting the information early, and then working with the people that are here to help you. So I think that's the other major takeaway from where I sit.
Yeah, and on that last one, I was staying proactive and stay informed. Please do me a favor. Do not react. Do not panic. Take a deep breath. I was telling Mercedes this when we talked the other day. and wait until things are published by, so what changes are going to happen? Wait until Customs and Border Protection publish what is the change that is actually going to implement. Yes, of course, be aware with the news and have your sources, but make certain that you do your homework before reacting or making decisions or changing your supply chain. Because at the end of the day, what we wait, for example, from our side, we always wait until, yes, the announcement is made, the executive order is signed, or something has happened, but how does customs give the steps and the how things are going to be implemented? And that will give you a better sense of what is needed from you and what areas have to happen. And Joe, this is, for example, we're going to go through an example of how we do this. How do we work with a customer in general? This is just as an example, but it gives you the sense of the steps that you need to take and how do you work out.
So when working with my customers, ultimately it starts with a conversation. I think right now, most importantly, we're going to talk about China and China with the tariff increase into the United States. One of my larger customers, a customer in the city, was heavily impacted by the tariffs. They wouldn't have been able to be profitable if their goods were taxed at the point in which they were going to be post tariff changes. So what did they do? These customers changed their supply chain, explored the option, moved to Korea, moved to Vietnam, now multi-source from 2 different countries, get the same goods or similar goods from a similar part of the world, but are now sourcing in a way that they are paying less effectively on tariffs. So you have many options when you look at your supply chain. I think being flexible, being adaptable, and being able to change with new information is part of where business is going in the future, because these changes are really ultimately making business owners make different decisions. And I think being flexible and being agile is extremely important. So you have to explore your options, especially when you look at your supply chain as a whole.
Yes, I love that. And mapping out the process, right? I'm a visual person too. I need to sit down and say, okay, how do we move this? What are the different areas that we have? You have options. Remember, have that in mind and make certain that you do your homework on how do you do the mapping. And I love this tool. Joe, this is something that you guys work on, is the mapping approach, right? How do you look
Exactly.
about the movement, right? What you were talking.
Exactly. And what we'll do is we'll come in to your business and we'll talk about it. We'll put it on, it's a whiteboarding session. So and that's literally comes from, we used to go on the whiteboards and before technology and write out where are you sourcing your good from. And now it's supposed it's a PowerPoint, but it's a true whiteboard. We want to understand, make it visual, make it logical, and ultimately make sure that we're all aligned in where your business is sourcing goods and then eventually where they're winding up. I think when you have these mapping sessions, it is unbelievable at understanding your business needs and seeing
Mm-hmm.
where you can become more efficient. These mapping
Yeah,
sessions are,
and
yeah,
and
go
it gives you the visual, right? I know. I was laughing when you say that the whiteboard. Now my son reminds me it's an electronic whiteboard. He thinks of that from school, like that everything is now electronic. But it's important to have that visual. So we're almost done. I want to leave. I don't know, Mercedes and Catherine and Jenny. I don't see any questions yet, but let's have. We created some questions, right? For example, you have a challenge and you have increased costs when sending goods to the US, impacting price competitiveness. So, what can you do, Joe?
It's a good question. You could reduce
Yeah.
custom fees and other related costs. It's not just the cost of goods sold, it's what's going into that, the brokerage fees, the additional changes in tariffs. Whether you put it on a whiteboard or you just have a conversation with your UPS consultant, I think it's really, really important to understand the additional fees, the hidden costs that are
Yeah.
baked in, and eventually, ultimately, affecting profit and profit margin.
Yeah, and I think looking at this, working with the small businesses when we go through the training too, as you know, is the price of the final price, right, to your consumer. You need to take in consideration all these things as you're looking at this area. I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna skip this one because we talk about how do you do the tariff and what are the process that you can do. I think I like this one about customs holds and delivery delays. This happens sometimes, right? So what are those options, Joe?
Yeah, this happens all the time. So once you onboard with UPS, you get your account representative, then you get someone on the international side. for holds, once you're tracking those packages, you reach out to UPS, and we actually have a relationship with the brokers. So to give an example, you're exporting your goods to Canada. You're my customer in the city. You send me an email with that tracking number, and we have a team behind the scenes that works with customs to speed up the process and get the necessary information to move those goods. It could
And for
seem
example,
intimidating, especially if you're not exporting to Canada now, but it's really not. It's a relatively simple process.
yeah, and some policies are changing in Canada and Mexico, by the way, which you need to be aware of. The last one, just as an example, and I know, and I want to make certain is we're not, I know we're showing our products, but we want to give you an example of what tools you have, right? So make certain that you have that understanding. Whoever, you don't have to work with us, whoever you work with, I know Joe's going to kick me out, but make certain that you have a sense of what is available out there. I love this one, right, Joe? Because this is something sometimes that we hear from small businesses. I'm exporting something and then I get a bill, $100 or something that I didn't know I had this duty. And we launched this tool, which I love, right? The UPS Global Checkout.
It's unbelievable. Landed cost is the name of the game, especially with exporting. Knowing what your customer is going to pay, knowing the total cost of that transaction gives visibility.
Before, yeah.
Exactly. And it gives your customer visibility. It reduces cart abandonment. It's an all-in cost. Global checkout is a game changer for folks that are exporting all around the world.
Okay, I'm getting that signal. We are always on time. I know I have to include this one. This is my Sally one. But I love this slide, right, Joe, showing how our accuracy. But this is the last one, the last 5 seconds.
Yep. No, and I'll be quick, right? Comparatively, UPS is best in class at exporting your goods. Its comparison to the competition. I won't bore you with the numbers. It's recorded. You're going to get this sent out. But at the end of the day, UPS is a leader to most global lanes.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop there, Jenny. This is some of the products, but I know this is not the moment. But I hope this has been useful for the audience, and that you feel as a small businesses you have a community. I love Catherine's presentation and all the sources that are available, information. Mercedes with SBDC and what we can bring to the table. So I'm gonna stop there, and I don't know if there's any questions, but happy to address. Joe, thank you.
Yes, we do have a question that we'll start with, and Mercedes is with us. She had to connect by phone because she was having internet issues, so she is with us and can be part of the conversation just through her phone. So this question is a really great one. Is there a web page or other resource where you can easily view current tariffs and find updates as tariffs change?
Yes, there is, and I will send you the link. CBP has an updated page where they update all the changes that are being implemented. I'll send you the link for that piece so that can be distributed. And Catherine, I don't know if you also have something that you're posting, maybe?
No, because of the volatility, it would just be impossible to keep up. I will say the caveat with that one is that the it can be challenging to navigate. So that's where, relying on your customs brokers and your partners to help make sure that you're keeping track of it. And, Maria-Lisa had said it a bunch of different times, and I think Joe might have too, knowing your product codes and then changing them, being aware of, if you change suppliers, you might have to, or change ingredients or change component parts, they may change your code. So making sure that you're staying on top of that is really your best bet. And then the tariffs will change not only by that, but they'll change by country. So there's a lot of multiple things in the air to keep track of. And that's why it's so important to not only know your business and know your products, but know who your support people are.
Yeah, and I want to say something though, but I'm a helpful kind of person. Oh, I heard someone say I'm a refilling cup. So even if it goes down, I go back and pull it back in. But I also think within the chaos, there's more order now. Remember that slide that I showed about the 3 bucks? It's not changing as much as before. We do have a path forward right now. We have USMCA, the rest of the world, and China and Hong Kong. You have the 232s. So that chart that we'll share with you will help you keep an eye of what the next steps are, and we'll update the information after July 9th, because I think we're going to hear some announcements there, what some potential agreements that are being reached out with several countries, and so that will tell you if it is less than 10% or 10%, so you will have a better sense. So there's an order within the chaos, and I think things are not changing as much. We're getting to a process where you're going to have a more visibility of what to expect.
Excellent. And Mercedes, if you have anything to add, go ahead and unmute. I know it's more difficult on a phone than it is on a computer, but feel free. Another question that we've had multiple questions about is, will we get the slides? And yes, and Maria, I know you said you were having trouble with the size of the,
Thank you.
yes. So I can share a way that you can share that larger file with me, and then we can get it sized down and sent out to people.
Thank you, Jenny.
Okay, so we do have time for a few more questions. This
Hi,
next
can
one.
you hear me now?
Oh, yes, we can. Mercedes, go ahead.
Yes. I just wanted to say to all the attendees that if they have questions about tariffs, they can email me, and then we can investigate further through the website that Maria Luisa has signed on the Border Protection website. But also, we're going to keep an eye on all the changes, because this is going to change again. We know that.
Yeah.
So,
and we have, and
Mercedes,
we also have a web, I forgot, we also have on our site, on the UPS site, you don't have to be a customer. We also have the latest to post it. So I'll send those links to you. So if anyone needs
that
it.
would be great. That we will share them with the people who have registered, all the attendees. Thank you so much, Maria Luisa.
Of course.
That was excellent, by the way. That was very, very good and very practical.
I hope so. I think I see a question.
Yes.
Jenny.
And I just wanted to let everyone know, I just dropped Mercedes's email into the chat. I'll also drop in just a moment the link where you can sign up for services. As a reminder, our services are no cost. So, you know, nothing to lose financially with us if you choose to work with the Small Business Development Center. Okay, so question. Are there substantial delays on importing from China due to tariff, shipping issues, etc.? This person has a seasonal product that they are concerned with getting in time.
So I'll start, and then I'll kick it over to Joe. The delays, I mean, there's no delays depending on the mode of transportation that you choose. What has been a delay is the classification. If your product was moving under, I said, the de minimis under $800, then that has caused some delays in terms of the cost and how that was being classified. But what we're seeing is we have seen a lot of shifts from de minimis maybe going on airplane service, moving to ocean, or consolidating with other products. Joe, I don't know if that's what you're seeing too from your perspective.
From a network standpoint, right now, this tends to be slack season before peak, but right now the network is operating extremely efficiently, especially from APAC, better than I've seen in previous years. So that's your express, expedited, and saver product. It's like 2 to 5 days, depending on which product you choose from mainland China to the States. But from a purely logistics standpoint, the network's running extremely efficiently.
Yeah, and that's on the air side. I think what we have heard from some small businesses that I have heard in the conversations, or we're having the policy conversations to the person who's asking the questions, there were delays at some point where with sea containers. There were some delays coming out of China, that they were delaying some of the goods moving, but I think things are moving forward. What has changed is the classification and what you need to understand how much to pay on the tariffs.
No, absolutely.
Thank you. And I just put the link to sign up for our free advisement services. You sign up with your local center, and our local centers collaborate with Dr. Sanchez Moore. Okay, let's see. I think we've gotten all of the questions. So is there anything that any of you would like to add in closing on this topic? I mean, this has been a fantastic information-packed excuse me, session today. Anything that you would like to add?
I want to say you're not alone. That's my message. You have a lot of support around you. I love being part of this community from a UPS side. Uh, Calm down, take a deep breath, and things will move forward. And you're not alone. You have a lot of resources available to move forward. So that will be my message. I don't know, Joe, to you.
No, it's a lot of information, a lot of changes. The big thing is not to be intimidated. You have resources, you have people that are educated, and this is quite literally my day-to-day job, our day-to-day job is to keep ourselves in the know, and then by proxy, keep you all in the know. But it's a great time for international trade. It's a great time to export. And right now, you can gain a competitive advantage by acting when some people are sitting on their hands. So I wish you all the best of luck, and I thank you for the time on the panel.
Fantastic. Catherine,
Well,
anything you'd like to
No, I
add?
think that's exactly the point. You know, it's a long game. It's a business of details and relationships. And when you are present when the going gets tough, you then become a preferred partner. And I think that's exactly the right message, that this is a long game. The volatility and the changes and things that we've been experiencing more recently are really in the long game, just a blip. And we will get through it, and we will keep moving on. And we've been doing international trade in New York State before there was international. We've been doing a lot of fur trading from 400 years along the rivers and ports and things in New York. So we had the first foreign trade zone in the world was on Staten Island. So we've got a long history and a lot of experience and a lot of support. So you're in the right place to do this kind of work.
Thank you, Mercedes.
I just want to thank the three presenters that we had today. This has been a very informative, super useful presentation. I'm so happy that Global New York is also trying to hear from the business community, seeing about the impact, and also Maria Luisa is super knowledgeable, and her colleague from UPS as well. The availability of her as a resource is priceless in these days of volatility and uncertainty. So again, the advice to everyone, just contact us. We will utilize all the resources, all of our contacts to try to answer your questions. And again, thank you. And also Jenny, thank you so much for all the hassles and going through all the technical difficulties of today.
My pleasure. I'm glad to help. I'm glad to help get this information to everybody. All right. So we do have a survey if you have a moment to answer a few questions. And with that, we will let everyone get back to their days. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, all.
Thanks. Bye-bye.